Sure. Hello and welcome everyone. We're for joining us for our postgrad study information session on journalism and sports media. We're thrilled to have you today. So I just want to welcome you and also welcome the people in the room. So we've got Juliet O'Brien, who's one of our lecturers in the journalism program and teaches in the undergrad and postgrad degree. And we have got also Mikhail Morgan, one of our alumni, but also teaches into our degree. So they're here along with myself to introduce you to what we do and hopefully have any questions, respond to any questions you might have. So just want to let you know that this session is now being recorded. We record an audio screen share and the presenters. We will be sharing it for UTS, for teaching and learning purposes for staff involved. We use it also to share questions and responses that might be important with the broader community, but also to build an online text catalog of questions and answers for any prospective students. So just letting you know that by taking part in this session, you do understand and acknowledge that your information will be used for those purposes that I've just explained. If you do not wish to be involved and to be recorded as part of the webinar, you can also contact us on fast.marketing@uts.edu.au instead, as is listed at the bottom of this slide. All right, so let's get started, the exciting bit. Well, why do you study journalism or sports media at UTS? At UTS, we have a very kind of unique program that we pride ourselves for, having also worked at different universities globally and nationally. And that is that we combine practical skills, but also with industry knowledge. So theory also is included and weaved into our degree, where we just make sure that you know how to do journalism, but you also understand why journalism happens the way it is in today's industry. So you will learn to research, interview, compile, review, foundational skills are developed. And we do focus and are in contact continuously with industry to understand those skills. A lot of our academics who teach into the degree are themselves already practicing journalists, so they understand what is required. We also have industry facilities, so you'll use, for example, if you're going to focus on sports media, you'll be having access to the Sydney Cricket Ground Trust and the Moore Park facilities. We also make sure that you have industry contacts. There's a lot of internships, and Juliet will be able to talk to you about that too, also as our internship coordinator. But as part of the way that the degree is structured and the courses, our assessment makes sure that anything that you do is something that you can put in your professional portfolio. And I'm sure Mikhail will talk to you about that too, as she developed her portfolio while she was doing the degree. There's many opportunities for you to actually publish your work. So we've got Central News, which I'll talk to you about in a minute. We've got UMag and Vertigo, which are also UTS publications. So let me tell you a little bit of the Master of Advanced Journalism. And I just want to say before I go on, I don't want to scare you with the idea or the word advanced, because advanced doesn't mean that we teach at a higher level and for entry. So if you do not have previous journalism experience, then that doesn't mean this course isn't for you. In fact, it is for you. The advanced bit is more the way you will end rather than where you start. So we make sure that you have a high degree of journalism skills that are advanced and will allow you to work in industry. So just remember that that word advanced is more for where you will end up rather than where you start, with us taking you there through your journey with us for your Master of Journalism. The course totals around 9 subjects. So we have got 6 core subjects and 3 electives. Just to get an idea of how that works, so full-time students complete the course in a year and a half, and they're required to undertake 3 subjects per semester. The timing of our classes, I know this would be important because I was once a master student who was also working, is usually in the evening. So we usually think about students who have finished work and come over and join us. Part-time students can undertake 1 or 2 subjects per semester. It does depend on the number of subjects taken, and the course will take 2 to 5 years. Okay, moving on. Now, let me tell you about the graduate diploma in advanced journalism. So you can also do a grad dip. And this course is total of 6 subjects, 4 core subjects, and 2 electives. Full-time students can complete the course in a year and are required to undertake 3 subjects per semester. And part-time students can complete the course in a 1.5 to 3 years, and undertake 1 or 2 subjects per semester. So one of the exciting programs we have is the Graduate Diploma in Sports Media, and we have Amanda Shalala and Amanda Ball who teach into that and also have experience with industry. They are amazing lecturers, and they are specialized in sports media, but you also do work with the rest of the staff. The course totals 6 subjects, 4 core subjects and 2 electives. And full-time students complete the course in 1 year and are required to undertake 3 subjects per semester. And of course, as it says here, part-time students undertake 1 or 2 subjects a semester, again, depending on the number of subjects taken, which will be taken over 2 to 5 years. So you can see that you've got a lot of options in terms of postgrad degrees at UTS for journalism. One of the really fascinating kind of hubs that we have that bring everything together is Central News. There is an editor who's Martin Newman, who works as part of the team, and he oversees Central News. And if you haven't had a chance, I'd really encourage you to go and have a look at Central News at the UTS news site online, and you can have a look at the different types of stories that students report on. And there's podcasting, there's multimedia, there's investigative stories. And then we do cover major news events like budget nights and election nights. And those are really exciting because the students just kind of work all around, all through, and hey, you get pizza too. So, but more interestingly, what Central News allows you to do is also to intern with us. So you can, for example, be a news editor or a news mentor, or work with the social media team or the audio team or the video team or the multimedia team, and propose stories and work with them on teams. We also like to work with other disciplines. So you might work with someone who's studying music, or someone who's studying film. So there's a lot of kind of interaction in that newsroom that we that you can see on the website. So we do give also an opportunity for students to have a certificate of internship, and we acknowledge that as one of the internships. We also have the foreign correspondence study tour. I'm going to let Mikhail talk about that when she talks about her experience as an alumni, but also this is a great opportunity for students to go overseas to study for 2 weeks. Sorry, I wish it was 2 years, but it's 2 weeks. But it does feel like 2 years, doesn't it? But because of the amount of learning and the number of stories that students accomplish. So we've gone, this is funded by DFAT, by the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. And basically we've gone to the Philippines. Mikhail has joined me for Jordan and Tunisia, India and Thailand. And I will stop there and let Mikhail talk about it. We have had experiences with SBS Online, but the idea is that students produce 5 stories individually and with groups, and they file them to SBS. It's really exciting. I think, Mikhail, there were times when we were working in the bus, and students would get their stories published. I'll let Mikhail jump in right now, actually, while we're on this topic.
Yeah, so I was Sava's student, I think in 2016, doing international journalism. It was a subject I really got into and made me really excited about being in the master's program. And it was a fantastic group of postgrad students. And then we also had students from Swinburne University who joined us that year. And we all worked really well collaboratively, writing stories, finding them in Amman, and then publishing them with SBS, which was absolutely just a thrill. Like it was it's an adrenaline kind of experience. But yeah, getting our work published by SBS was fantastic, getting out there, finding stories. And I know working with those people during that trip, they're now, colleagues that I can get in touch with. They work, Charlotte Grieve works for investigations at The Age, and we were, in the same class together. And then students who have gone on to Tunisia are doing really well as well. But basically after getting work published, because of the Foreign Correspondence Study Tour, I was then offered a job with SBS. So then halfway through my master's degree, I had a job at SBS as I was continuing to study, which was amazing. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Mikhail. And I'll get you to talk about the rest of the degree later on, but I think it was just an enjoyable experience, because students would say, oh, we don't need to write a story in 2-3 weeks when we can do it in 2 days. And it's a matter of doing it in a foreign country, but you actually are a foreign correspondent. It's actual learning through actual being, which is great. Mikhail, before I go on to you, I would just like to invite Juliet to talk about what she does, and also her input into the degree.
Yeah, sure. Thanks so much, Sava. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here, and it's great that you're considering this course. I am a UTS journalism alumnus myself. I graduated, I don't know, about 15 years ago, and now I'm back, and it is so good to be back. So I teach, my specialties are data journalism and entrepreneurial journalism. And it's cool to be like in the new sorts of the sexy new things, but they're actually the really important things as well. So entrepreneurial journalism can sound a little bit intimidating to people, but really it's about the sort of journalist that you kind of need to be in media today, which is the skills that you need to be proactive and perhaps to freelance, and even if you're inside an organization, to be intrapreneurial as well as entrepreneurial. And it's really about us finding ways to work in what is called the present future, right? Where every 5 years or something, we go through this huge shift in audience behaviors, and we have to find ways to keep up. So entrepreneurial journalism is about thinking about the product and the strategy as well. And then data journalism, I'm immersed in data, and that's really about finding data to complement a story, or finding a story in data. And in both of these, there's a real emphasis on skills, building skills. But as Sava said as well, the reason why you study journalism at a university rather than just going straight into industry or something is to get this moment as well, to be able to reflect, and a capacity for critical thinking. And so we wrap all of that up in all of these subjects. Another subject that I teach is called Journalism Major Project, and that's a capstone subject. And so the students, postgraduate students, are producing a major piece, but throughout semester, we're focusing on, okay, what are the practical skills you need to either produce this video, TV, online multimedia feature, or a written feature? What are the writing skills? How should you be doing it? Writing script, interviewing skills, and so on. Structure, how do you structure a long form story? But we also talk about what are the critical aspects that you should be reflecting on as well. And the thing with that is that doesn't stop. If you build that capacity in university, then you can hold that with you through your career, because that's what every day in journalism is about. It's about editorial questions and ethical questions, right? And decision making. So in my subjects, we bring all of them into that. And the other thing that I counsel all of my students to become a T-shaped person. And not everyone is familiar with this idea, but it's where you have a breadth of knowledge, skills, and experience, but you have an area of depth. And I think that the UTS degree really, it brings that concept together, where you need to get breadth across multiple areas, but then you have the freedom to choose which area you want to start to develop a depth of expertise in as well.
Thank you so much, Juliet. And absolutely, that is a really important point to consider, because when you build your portfolio throughout the degree, we give a lot of the assessments actually gives you freedom to choose what you want to write on. So if you have a particular area of expertise that you want to be experienced in, or be, say, a music journalist or a political journalist or a fashion journalist, we do encourage you to build a portfolio that looks ready for you to be employed in those areas. Thanks, Juliet, for that. Mikhail, I'll hand over to you for now to tell us more about your student experience at UTS.
Yeah, of course. And please jump in if I'm missing anything or anyone ask me a question. But yeah, a big part of my experience was these opportunities like the study tour, like teachers like Sava, who made me really excited about journalism. And then I also finished off my degree by going to Denmark to finish the last 2 subjects of my degree, because of the connection that UTS has with the Danish School of Media and Journalism. So I actually got to spend the last 6 months there doing my degree. And I think there's so many opportunities that come up like this, where you've got really good connections to industry, connections to other universities, that you just can't have access to them as well when you're not taking part in this degree. So there were so many opportunities that I was just putting my hand up for that were incredible and, yeah, amazing for my career.
Thanks, Mikhail. And that's one of the other things, is that we really do think that you can drive your career. We also have a lot of internship opportunities which students can put their hands up. And I'm going to let Juliet talk about that as our internships coordinator.
Yeah, I was naive when I said yes to doing the internships coordinator, because I had no idea how many emails there would be, which is such a good thing for students. And, you know, obviously we've been through this terrible time of COVID, but on the plus side, things are back bigger than ever, I think. Like, there's a real push now to get people back into places, and for students to be interns in all kinds of different places. So, I mean, there are internship opportunities at the big core media, news and media organizations that you would all know about. So there's News Corp, ABC, SBS. It's a competitive process, right? And these opportunities are put out to students in any university, but we make sure that students know about it, first of all, and can help in the application process. But the other thing is that there are organizations where you can have a brilliant internship and also a career that people don't think about straight away, and we help to facilitate those. So one example is Bloomberg, where a lot of people get a bit scared off by the idea of finance journalism, but actually, you know, we're like fish in water in terms of economics and neoliberal policies and so on. And it's actually such an important part of journalism. So we facilitate introductions and events and talks so that you can at least wrap your head around what some of the opportunities might be. And that's something that I'm building with Sava, is more industry events, so that you're not just putting in cold applications in different places. You actually get to hear from, whether it be AAP, Bloomberg, alternative organizations, maybe something like Crikey, New Matilda, you know, and you can think about the different paths for your career, because actually there are a legion of opportunities. It's not just about ABC, SBS, 9, ex-Fairfax and News Corp, you know, so that's what we try to do with the internships. And ultimately, you know, building a career is just about experience. And this is something that I talk to the students about, as well as that we have this concept of prototypes in products, but you also want to prototype your experiences in your career. If you don't know exactly what you want to do, then an internship is the place to test it. And you just dip your toe in the water and you go in for 6 or 8 weeks and you see what it's like. So there's a very rich, vibrant kind of system and community for learning about internships. And I would be surprised if any student got to the end of this course and had not done an internship. Yeah.
Thanks, Juliet. Absolutely. We encourage students to do internships. There are many opportunities. And as Mikhail also said, you know, you grab what you can get and you make as much as you can out of it. And we're certainly here to support you. The admission requirements, I'll just go through those quickly. So the Masters of Advanced Journalism or the Grad Dip. Now, all applicants will need to have completed some form of a bachelor degree or an equivalent of that or a higher qualification. For the Masters of Advanced Journalism, you need a bachelor degree in a field of education management and commerce, society and culture or creative arts. But certainly if you feel that you want a change of life, please also consider submitting your application, even if you have a degree, say from chemistry, because the beauty of journalism is that you can blend it with science, you can blend it with law, you can blend it with international studies. So just please put in your application. And if the bachelor is in another field, then if you have 2 years of related professional work experience or something similar, then also that would be great. The grad diploma, if you our applicants have not completed a bachelor's, master's or grad diploma, graduate certificate qualification in any field, but a personal statement of 500 words explaining why they wish to study the CV along the course, along with a copy of your CV. In terms of application deadlines for international students, we're looking at late January 2023. And the fees are listed here on the slide. So I'm just going to take any questions you may have. There are already a few questions, so I'm happy to start going through them, if that's okay. So the first question is, if you're not a strong or confident student but want to work with Central News, is it really competitive to get into the Central News team? Oh, no, not at all. That is the whole idea of Central News. It is there for the students. We want students to come in and experience it. In fact, I'm working with Juliet on this idea of making sure that all our students get an opportunity to have experience with Central News. So that's really important to keep in mind. We are about including students and teaching them. We don't want students to not be there. So just to give you an idea for the study tour, we once had a student who, bless him, but he just was still struggling with writing news. But we saw potential in him and we got him to be on the study tour, and he blossomed and flourished to the extent that he's now completed his master's in journalism. He's doing an undergrad at the time and now teaching into a master's course, not with us, but with another university. So we see potential, we see passion is sufficient in our world, because as Juliet said, we encourage critical thinking, we encourage reflection. We know that if you're interested in that, you will do well, and we are there to help you. This is a learning, not a testing degree. It's a degree where you learn. The next question for past and present students: what were the first 6 weeks or so like of the degree? What can we do to prepare ourselves to hit the ground running? Michaela, over to you as a past student.
There is no way I can remember the first 6 weeks. I'm trying to think now. I just know that I really liked all my teachers, and I was really impressed that they were all in the industry, or had all these great stories about their professional fields. And even now, as a journalist at the ABC, I see my old tutors and have to work with them sometimes. So I think that was my first impression, was just how much I really enjoyed learning from these teachers.
Can I chime in there?
Yeah.
As that's beautiful, Michaela. That's so nice to hear as well. And I think from a teaching perspective, I mean, first of all, the person who asked this question, like, you're going to succeed, because that sort of being proactive in that way, wondering how you can hit the ground running, is fantastic. And we love to see that. I would say that, and just off what Sava was saying as well, in terms of central news, it's EQ, energy quotient, above IQ in intellectual, right? So if you are energetic and proactive, then you will succeed. So in terms of showing up for the first 6 weeks, the main thing is read journalism, right? And read it from, and listen to it and watch it and get it from a range of sources. And be immersed in the questions and issues. So break out of your echo chamber or whatever it is. Read the best publications in the world, and then you'll be off to a good start.
Thanks, Mikhail. Thanks, Juliet. So does this course give me the skills to be a freelance journalist? Yes, it gives you the skills to do a lot. So we're not just looking at journalists. You can be a researcher in the media organization. You can be a consultant. You can do your own entrepreneurial skills. Juliet teaches entrepreneurial journalism. Did you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question, because entrepreneurial journalism, it's really about the skills for in life, but also to be a freelance journalist, and also to basically create your own product, to create your own company, and to work within a large organization, being entrepreneurial. So freelance journalism is part of it. In terms of teaching, I suppose, I'm thinking about all of the different skills that we would cover that would relate to a freelance journalist, but it's really about, besides your core storytelling skills, right? That would be the first thing that you'd need to build. You'd also be looking at your breadth of technical skills, but then what you want to be building are your pitching skills. So we cover that a lot, which is like identifying what publications you're pitching to, who's your audience, what sort of problem are you solving for them, and so on. So, and then it's about just getting out there and building your networks, which is another big part. So there are different pieces to the element. It's not like we have a subject that says how to be a freelance journalist, but all of the skills build towards that.
Amazing. Thank you, Juliet. And that's very true. It's what you want to do. And let us know when you come what you want to do while you're doing this degree. I always ask that to my students when they first arrive, so we know how to help them. We can teach you everything, but if we cater it while we're doing that, that would be great. We've got a couple of great questions coming up. So my friends told me that UTS students have won industry awards. Your friend is right. So yes, our students have won Walkley Awards, Student Walkley Awards, and Aussie Awards annually without fail. We've also had students, if you go to who have won the Media Diversity Award just last month, we are always congratulating students on their awards, and they've also been doing really well internationally. So if you just go to our Twitter account for UTS Journalism, and also a Twitter account for Central News, you will find a list of the students who won awards, including the awards that what awards they have won. So we don't just win one, but we win a couple. Central News has also been awarded 2 years ago, I think, or just about, the best student website for journalism. So definitely have a look at our Twitter accounts. which outline all of those awards. Tech skills, what free online tech can we familiarize ourselves with? Video creation, writing, publishing, tech support platforms, audio tech. Well, I think anything you do would be great, but we do have through our Media Lab a set of workshops that will teach you how to use the cameras, how to use the equipment, including editing suites such as Adobe. Juliet, did you want to add to that, or Mikhail?
I'm just trying to think about which ones are free and online.
Before they join us.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question because, but often we get a little bit carried away with tools, right? So actually, you will sometimes be able to tell us about the new tools because there are new tools all the time. They're changing. I mean, I think there's you've got Adobe Audition in terms of sounds. There's definitely free versions and so on. But I would say you'll be able to find the tools online, and if you want to sink your teeth in, you can. Like, I can't really rattle any off because I use Google Docs a lot, right? So if you want to sink your teeth into data, then go find a data set and familiarize yourself with Excel and Google Docs, and that'll put you in an amazing place for data journalism. But in terms of audio and video and so on, I'm not sure. You can look it up online. Michaela might have some suggestions.
I think just building on what you're saying is, I think the most important things I learned are things like you mentioned, Juliet, like how to write a long form story, how to structure it, how to do a good interview, all those building blocks. Because sometimes you might find that you get to one organization and they use one editing system and then SBS uses another. So those are things you can learn on the job really quickly. But the most important things is learning how to write a story and the bones of that. So I think there are really great workshops to get along to at UTS, but as Juliet mentioned, it's always changing. So if you've got those core skills, that's the most important thing, I think.
Yeah, that's such a good point. I work in content management systems a lot, and you're right. Every news organization I go to uses a different CMS.
Yeah.
But so if you know how to use one though, then you kind of can wrap your head around the concepts.
Great, thank you. And we have one last question for now. Totally get how important reading widely is. Suggestions for methods to filter misinformation. That's a very good question. So there's multiple ways of doing that. First of all, make sure that you read reputable media organizations and international ones. And even then, read widely so you can compare and make your own judgment. So that's something to do. There's also scholarly work. If you go to Google Scholar, you can find a few even open access scholarly work, so they can tell you how to know better about the industry and how to deal with it. The Conversation also is a really good source for the wider public to read about academics writing in terms of knowledge, but also in terms of issues that are more journalistic style. So that's kind of fact checked and also based on scholarly work. But I'm happy to answer that question further on. So thanks for that. So this is a question for all the presenters. Who inspires you as a journalist? What are you aiming for in your own work, and why are you so passionate? So I'm going to hand over that to Juliet and then Michaela, who are both working journalists at the moment.
Sure, what a great question. You know what, I was actually just catching up on Tracy Grimshaw's interview last night with Charlie Teo, which was a phenomenal interview. And so I think having an acute appreciation for the skills that go into something makes you appreciate journalism in lots of different quarters. So like interviewing skills, I think, Tracy Grimshaw is one of the absolute best. But look, in general, I sort of drool over a couple of American publications. I mean, data journalism, Financial Times, there's Mona Chalabi at Guardian US, who's the data editor there. Then there's John Byrne Murdoch, who's the data journalists at FT. And I was like raving about them in class a few weeks ago, and I called them the rock stars of data journalism, and everyone laughed at me because apparently that's the geekiest thing you can ever say. But yeah, so, you know, data journalism has had this amazing moment throughout COVID, and I'd say they'd be my two standouts. But New York Times, in terms of what that publication has done in terms of grappling with you know, the business models, finding new audiences. They now have 10 million paying subscribers. They absolutely break new ground in storytelling all the time. And it's not storytelling just for bells and whistles. It's about what I believe is the most important profession on the planet right now, which is communicating information to people so that people are going to make the best decisions for their lives, their livelihoods, and who they vote in, right? And we can see what misinformation does, like with January 6th in the US, we have climate change, you know, like the issues with misinformation and communication are so profound, and finding ways to communicate to people in a way where you're giving them sugar to make the medicine go down. I really think no one beats New York Times in terms of doing that. So that's my answer.
Thanks, Juliet. Mikhail?
Well, I've only just recently started working at the ABC. I've been at SBS and Channel 10 before that. But what it means is I've come back to radio, which is where I first started in my career. So I'm really, really excited to be back in radio. And just listening to all the presenters at ABC Radio Sydney, where I work, where they're doing live interviews on air, which I think is a real skill. We're working as a producers to help put stuff together, but I absolutely love listening to radio journalists and how they put together those stories. So I also wanted to give a shout out because I know you mentioned Amanda Shalala, and I didn't know that she worked at UTS Sava, but she has done some amazing work on radio recently. And I'm not even a sports person myself, but she is such an amazing sports communicator. And if that's something that you are interested in going to, then Amanda's the perfect person to help you on your way. But yeah, definitely I teach undergrad as well, and it's something we talk about at the beginning of every session before we start our classwork. What are you listening to? What are you reading? What are you watching? Where are you getting your news from? Because I like learning it as much from my students as I'm telling what them, and we all kind of share that information. But yeah, definitely big radio fan, radio and podcasts.
Great, thank you, Michaela, Juliet, and thank you everyone for those great questions. They're really, really good questions to go with, and I hope that that has given you a better idea of put faces for the degree, and feel that maybe this is something that you would want to do, but also just understand that we're here to help you if this is something you want to do. And if there's any further questions that you might have, on the slide there, we've got the course information that you can get on the UTS Postgrad Journalism page, but also you can contact fast.marketing@uts.edu.au, or I am more than happy to even meet with you and have a chat and show you around. So my name is Sava Bibawi, and that's my email, sava.bibawi@uts.edu.au, if any questions pop up that you might have. So thank you, Michaela, Juliet, and everyone for attending, and hope that has been helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Sava.